recently upheld the abrogation of Article 370 from Kashmir. And we also know that Justice Kaul, while reading his verdict, recommended the establishment of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, specifically tasked with investigating human rights violations in Jammu and Kashmir during the 1980s. We'd like to invite someone whose entire life story, in a sense, has been linked with the story of Kashmir. Please welcome on stage Omar Abdullah, Vice President, Jammu and Kashmir National Conference, and of course, the former Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir. Mr. Sang, it's over to you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You were there when it all happened. Did you ever think that Article 370 was going to be abrogated in this way?
But when credible or seemingly credible
Yeah.
constitutional authorities sitting in Jammu and Kashmir reassure you time and again that you have nothing to worry about and that there is no threat to Jammu and Kashmir's constitutional status, then you sort of take that at face value, which is the mistake that we made.
When it happened, you were detained. Tell us about how that happened.
Well, actually, it started the night before. Suddenly, out of the blue, they discovered a rusty old sniper rifle.
Yes.
And something they claimed to have been an explosive device, the government claimed, and said that there was some threat to the Amarnath Yatra, and they curtailed that. And then there was this sudden move to ask tourists to vacate Jammu and Kashmir. That's when we realized that something big was happening. That night, the telephone started to go off. We went to bed with sort of internet going down, woke up in the morning and there was nothing. And when I went out of the house and looked at the gates, there were these massive padlocks that had been placed on the gates of the house. And I asked my security people, I said, what is this? They said, "Ye aapko band kiya hai." And I sat until the evening when my illegal confinement was converted into ostensibly a legal one. They used a provision for preventive detention and shifted me to a government guest house where I spent the next 8 months.
If they say preventive detention, they're required to show that you would commit an act of violence, you would do something. What grounds did they show for your preventive detention?
That I was a threat to peace. This wasn't, I mean, they subsequently, after the expiry of 6 months of this preventive detention, they then detained me under a different law, which is called the Public Safety Act. And that made a complete mockery of it, because when they detained me under the Public Safety Act, they actually detained me for doing what nationalistic India wanted me to do. The grounds for detaining me were that I campaigned against the separatists and that I defeated Pakistan's designs by encouraging voters to come out and vote in elections.
When you were in detention, were you allowed access to newspapers, internet, anything?
Not for the first 5 weeks.
5 weeks.
Yeah.
And did anyone come and see you from the government? Did they tell you what was happening?
It took 3 weeks for my sister to come and see me. I had occasional visits from members of the staff. Having spent 8 years in boarding school, I was actually sort of, I mean, it probably sounds strange, but I didn't really struggle. People close to me, they struggled more on my account than I did. I had a very fixed routine, and I went back almost to boarding school sort of levels. In all fairness to them, I got books. Then later I was able to get sort of DVDs and movies. So I watched a whole lot of stuff that I'd already seen before.
Did you feel then at any stage that your political career was over?
There was a lot of sort of self-introspection. There was a lot of questioning about what I would or wouldn't do.
Yeah.
I never had any sort of doubts about whether I would be allowed, because I'm not here at anybody's mercy.
Yeah.
I mean, the people of Jammu and Kashmir determined my political future. It was more a question of what I would or wouldn't want to do and what the sort of people of Jammu and Kashmir were thinking. Because while I had sort of access to news and information, I didn't really have access to party colleagues and workers and things like that. So it was a long time after I came out that I was able to sort of get a sense of the mood and what people were thinking and how we needed to reorient the sort of political direction that we were taking.
For the last several decades now, your father, your lives have been at risk. Pakistani terrorists, separatists, people have targeted you. Militants have seen you as Indian stooges who are denying the people of Kashmir their right to join Pakistan or whatever by claiming to be loyal Indians. Did it seem ironic for you now to be in this position?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always knew that there would be a section of population in Jammu and Kashmir for whom my politics would never be acceptable. The people or that section that didn't see a future for Jammu and Kashmir with the rest of India. But I never thought that I would be on a side where a concerted effort by the government and its political party to demonize mainstream political leadership in Jammu and Kashmir is very difficult to understand. And but it is the new reality. It is what it is, and I'd be foolish to sort of expect anything better.
If I asked you in a para to characterize what's happening in Kashmir now, what would you say? In Jammu and Kashmir, let's be fair.
It's no secret that you're not seeing the sort of street protests that otherwise you did see. Now, we can argue about the reasons behind that and how much of that comes from within sort of the people and how much of that is the heavy-handedness of the administration, and I don't want to get into that argument. I'll just accept that things are, at least on the face of it, calm. On the 5th of August 2019, when Article 370 was watered down and completely hollowed out, this country was told that separatism is a product of Article 370, terrorism is a product of Article 370, Jammu and Kashmir's seeming lack of development is a result of Article 370. Once Article 370 has gone, all these problems will be done away with. We will be reaching the 5th anniversary of what happened in August of this year. Pockets of separatist support continue to exist. Terror on the ground. There is hardly a week or 2 weeks during which a terrorist attack in Jammu and Kashmir is not reported. Those Kashmiri Pandits that we had resettled in the valley with government jobs and all sorts of other sort of packages are now screaming to be allowed to leave Kashmir and move back to Jammu. There's this whole belief that Jammu and Kashmir has suddenly seen new development. Yeah. But when I ask the people who claim this, look, can you please point out a single new project that has come up in Jammu and Kashmir after Article 370 was watered down? There's not a single one they can point out.
What about the fact that politics continues to be dominated by two families? Is that healthy?
Are we a democracy? Yes.
You answer the question.
Well,
yes, of course. India is, of course.
If we are a democracy, then ultimately the right to choose lies with the people.
Yeah.
Why do you grudge them their choice? They have a choice to reject one family, two family, or 10 families. I am not here because somebody has put me here. Yeah. I am here because the people of Jammu and Kashmir elected me to that place. I am out of office today because the people of Jammu and Kashmir did not return me to office. Look, the BJP only has a problem with those families that are opposed to it. Let's be honest. The BJP has no problem with families that are part of the BJP.
Let's look forward. What do you see happening in Kashmir? Well, let's start first of all with the parliamentary elections. That's the first thing. And then after that, what do you see happening?
We'll have a parliament election. We are a very small territory. We count for all of 5 seats in parliament. Yeah. Ladakh, if you include, then 6. So we really don't do anything to craft the sort of national narrative. But we'll take the fight to the BJP as much as we can. The important question is, what is the BJP and what is the government of India going to do about the deadline that the Supreme Court has set? It's a matter of considerable shame that elections in Jammu and Kashmir, rather than being announced by the Election Commission or encouraged by government of India, had to be announced by the Supreme Court. But so be it, we'll take it whichever way we can get it. I now hope that the Supreme Court's order will be followed and we'll have assembly elections before the end of the year.
But, I mean, it is possible it won't be followed, and the government will go to the Supreme Court and say anti-national forces are at work and it's not safe,
You know,
danger
I-
to public safety. It's possible.
I would love for the government of India to turn around and say that. Because, and in the same vein, I will ask them, then what the hell was 5th August 2019? Because if you could have assembly elections in 96, when, believe me, things were a whole lot worse, then you have absolutely no excuse for an inability to conduct assembly elections in 2024.
All right. Let's assume, for the purposes of argument, that elections are held in August or September. What will you campaign on?
Well, we will campaign on protecting the rights of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, protecting their land, protecting their character, and we will campaign on undoing a lot of the damage that was done to Jammu and Kashmir after 5th August 2019. We will also campaign on a positive agenda, on the agenda of peace, on the agenda of inclusivity, on the agenda of development. We will definitely be talking about acceptance.
Omar Abdullah, this has been wonderful. It's been education listening to you. Ladies and gentlemen, Omar Abdullah.
Please remain on stage as I invite Rajiv Khandekar, editor, ABP Maja and ABP News, to present Mr. Abdullah with a memento from ABP Ideas of India. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause. The dream of a Viksit Bharat, we know, cannot be realized without job creation. Development of climate-resilient infrastructure is also key. Clearly, building a new India is an ongoing project. We are privileged today to have one of the foremost experts on Indian economy join us on this platform to give us insights into how development priorities are shaped and also executed. Please put your hands together and welcome on stage Dr. Arvind Panagaria. He's of course been appointed recently as the chairperson of the 16th Finance Commission. Many congratulations again, sir. I'd request Shelly Chopra to please join us on stage to take this conversation forward.
There is so much optimism about India today. Having seen India from the outside and now building these, executing a lot of new ideas, which we'll talk about as we go, what is making you excited about the India story today?
So give me just a minute, to give you a little background of me, because I'm old. So I have seen the old India and I'm seeing the new India. And I remember, in the 1980s, I used to be very pessimistic about India, that this license permit Raj that we have will probably never go away. Things changed in 1991. And since then, we had ups and downs. But nevertheless, I think, the trend has continued to be towards liberalization with some bumps along the way. And as a result, the growth has been kicked up. For about 20 years, we have now grown about 7% a year in real rupees. But if I make the same calculation in real dollars, we have grown about 8% for 20 years. And if I take out the COVID years, it's 8.8% in real dollars. So that's hell of a growth.
Everyone who talks about the India growth story talks about amazing numbers that makes everyone euphoric about the potential. But every time we attach the word jobs with it, it doesn't always seem to add up.
If you look at the serious surveys, which is the PLFS, the labor force survey that the MOSPI does, your employment rates are not very high. Whether you look aggregate urban unemployment, rural is even less, and aggregate it has been around between 3 and 4%. So unemployment is really not India's problem in my view, and we can talk about it. Our problem is underemployment. So productivity is low. So the job that can be done by one person often gets done by two people or maybe three people. And that is where I think, the real challenge of jobs is creating well-paid, high productivity jobs.
How are we fixing this?
The capital is sufficiently there, meaning our savings rate now has climbed back up, and total investment to GDP ratio has come back to about 34% now, which is, from the peak that we experienced, very unusual in 2007-8, is only 2 or 3 percentage points away. What is still happening is that this capital is sitting in industries which employ very few workers. What we need is policies, and part of this problem has been very historical. We started out with incredible kind of license permit Raj on industry. So industry was very shackled. We opened that in the 1990s, but the small scale industries reservation remained. Then the labor laws still have not been reformed. We have passed the labor laws, four new codes, but they have still not been implemented. So capital really doesn't go where labor is. We still need to fix labor laws, need to fix infrastructure. I think infrastructure progress has been absolutely tremendous. Phenomenal, actually, I should say, in the last 4 or 5 years. But again, we do need to fix the labor laws. Some trade issues also, because we have so to compare to other countries, our protection level is higher. That needs to come down. These are problems I think will get sorted out, and over the next 10 years, I'm very optimistic that the jobs problem will be solved as well.
I wonder what your take is when you see that not only are we showing financial returns to the world, we're showing a voice of confidence.
Economically, really, India is the only major economy that's growing at this kind of rate. The rival economy, China, which had been growing very robustly for about 3 decades, I would say, has slowed down. I mean, there's no question. The 4th decade, if you take 2010's decade, growth rate has come down to about 7% during that decade. And currently, it is down to 5%. No surprise there. Actually, all the economies that had grown rapidly, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, Hong Kong, by the 4th decade, they slow down. And 5th and 6th, they slow down yet further. After you have grown that rapidly for 3 or 4 decades, you join the human race. India, on the other hand, has grown. Actually, it has not grown the 10% kind of at 10% kind of rate. So even though for 20 years we have had pretty good growth, still our per capita income is $2,400 or $2,500. We are still, compared to like South Korea, 33,000, compared to even China, 16, 17,000, we are still well below. What that means is that there is enormous gap between the productivity for the rest of the world and our own productivity per worker. So as capital accumulation happens, automatically productivity rises, but there is also the element of technological catch-up. That, technologies that can give you per capita incomes of, say, South Korea 33,000 or even China 17,000 already exist. They don't have to be innovated. They are there for us for taking.
Okay, my final question to you, and this is linked to a few phrases you constantly use, digital infrastructure. Do you think UPI and many of the allied stacks are going to be one big game changer on, on a global map for India as we go forward?
There is no doubt that it is a very important part of the change, but that's not the only change. On public infrastructure, I think there is no country that has done what India has done. The public digital infrastructure has moved far more rapidly. Our industry actually needs to step up. There was a time we were far ahead of China in IT. China was much later. But China has zoomed past us there, and I think I'd like our industry to also step up.
And IT has new alphabets these days. They are A and I.
I mean, we got to create this, especially when TikTok is taken away. It's the Facebook Shorts that came to replace it.
YouTube Shorts,
not our local homegrown.
Thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. Your insights make us very optimistic about the Indian economy. Please do stay on stage as I invite Avinash Pandey, CEO ABP Network, to join us and present Dr. Panagaria with a memento. A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.